Hi, friends. This is Christian. You may know me as Cardigans and Cards on social media. Today, I'm going to be doing a project that's a little bit different than what I normally do my videos on. We're going to be doing a craft roulette card. Craft roulette is a fun game that we play on Friday nights where a magic wheel tells us what our project is going to be, the colors we're going to use, the elements, and then something random on it. So I use this guide to kind of get my brain flowing and my juices going on how I want to make my card. For this card in particular, I will be using two different stamp sets. The first one is Cuckoo Clock from Pink and Main. I plan on using the little gnomes, the heart, and then the cuckoo clock. And then I needed a bow, so I'm going to be using the tiny bowl from Time Traveler, which is a retired set from Kindred's Stamps. For the tartan colorway, I decided on using a piece of paper from the Chill in the Air pattern papers from Pink and Main. And finally, I'll be utilizing the Circle Flip card from Pink and Main. This is a die set that will provide me the score line and the cut line of the circle so that I can make my flip card just like that. To start making the card, I took a piece of 5.5 by 8.5 piece of Desert Storm from Nina that will be utilized as my card base itself. I placed the die onto the base the way that the instructions tell you to get that fold that I needed. I then scored my lines and made sure that they were nice and sturdy. I chose this brown paper to match the tartan colored paper that I had selected. With the card base ready to go, it was now time to cut out the other components that I needed. I will be cutting out two circles. One will be for the front of the card, the second will be for the inside of the card. I also cut down my piece of tartan paper to a manageable size for me to die cut the two panels that come with the die set. This makes your decoration so much easier. Less math, which is a win for me. Finally, I trimmed down that tartan paper panel to be a 1/4 inch off of both sides so that it would leave me with an 1/8 inch border around the entire card base. It was finally time to do some stamping. First up, I'll be working on my little gnome scene. I stamped my sentiment first so that I can make sure that there was enough space for my little gnomes to fit in there as well as the little heart to fit in there. I did stamp this in a pigment ink and I knew it had time to dry while I finished doing the rest of my stamping. With the sentiment in place, it was now time to work on my little gnomes. I did use my gnome as a guide to determine kind of where I wanted to have the bow placed on her hat. I removed her and then stamped my little bow. Doing some simple masking, I did place some masking paper over the top of that bow so that I could stamp the gnome without having her little hat lines go through the bow. This is a very simple technique. I have lots of videos on it, so you can head over to my YouTube channel if you wanted to see some masking techniques. When I was satisfied with where she was in alignment, I went ahead and put her and her partner onto the piece of paper and then stamped them with alcohol safe ink, as I will be doing alcohol ink coloring. Once satisfied with my ink disbursement, I went ahead and removed my little gnomes and then stamped the heart. I did this separately because the heart didn't quite fit into the area that I wanted it to, and for some reason I took it off my MISTI. Who knows why? I just felt like that was a good idea. So there I am putting it all back together again. Anyway, when I was all done with that, I set it aside again to let that pigment ink dry while I finished stamping my cuckoo clock. The cuckoo clock I wanted to also do some masking on. To achieve this, I'll be using two different MISTIs. One that I will keep the cuckoo clock in place, and then the second for when I'm actually going to put my little bird on the cuckoo clock. So I did stamp this on a piece of scrap paper, just some printer paper that I had laying around so that I would be able to see how this alignment went. I pulled in my second MISTI, put my piece of cardstock in place, and then lined up the bird on my scrap piece of paper that I had the image on, so on that copy paper. This will allow me to have my bird in place because that's in the foreground. I want to be able to see it without any lines through it. So I was able to stamp that, put a mask on it, and then go back to my original Misty that has the cuckoo clock in it so that I can now stamp after that has been masked. This will allow me to make sure that I am in the same spot because I put my corners together in the Misty and it just makes it so it's continuous. And I didn't have to guess anywhere or do any hopeful thinking that it was all lined up correctly when it may or may not have been. I love masking. It is a great way to extend your supplies and also make cards that you can mail a little easier because there's no added dimension on it. Though, even though in this card I added some dimension because I had to. But anyway, it's a great tool and I love it. And peeling off the masks is my favorite part. So now I'm going to do a little coloring. I'm using Olo color markers. I will just play a little music here. I will have this information inside my blog so that you can get the color combos if you're looking for some ideas on how to do the color combos. And I'll see you after the music. I know, that wasn't music, but it made me laugh, so that's all that matters. So I got my coloring done. It was finally time to start putting my card together. So I grabbed my components and started doing some adhering. I did have this assembled prior, so I didn't have to remember what piece went where. It was already there, ready for me to go. The first piece I adhered was the flap. I wanted to make sure I was putting the correct images in the correct area. This also made me remember that I am actually decorating the inside of the card on the outside. I know, confusing. It makes sense in the long run. I then went into the inside of the card and added my white panel where I will be able to write my little sentiment to the recipient. I added my back panel and then started to put the rest of the card together. Could I have left this to be a completely flat card with no dimension? 100% I could, but that's not what I did. I decided that I wanted my little gnomes to be popped up. So I added some thin foam tape to the back of the gnomes. I cut off my piece of foam a little bigger than the actual size that I needed so that I can do some breakdown. I hate when my foam tape sticks to my scissors, so I place it on a sheet of backing paper, be it from a adhesive sheet or leftovers from a pre-made foam square backing piece. It just makes it so that I can cut my foam to whatever size I need for my project without having to have stickiness everywhere. I also add a little liquid glue to the back of my foam just to make sure that I have a little wiggle room because I am notorious for not putting stuff on straight. And it's more straight-ish. Even my line on my gnome on my grass, it's kind of straight. I chose to not use a ruler to make it straight because this is homemade. And why would anything be completely straight when it's homemade? It takes that quirkiness away from it. So I just embrace that I cannot draw a straight line. I added some finishing touches with a white gel pen and with some glossy accents, and I think I accomplished what I set out to do. I have my card. So I'm going to grab my little binder and really look at, did I meet all the parameters? So did I have my project, a flip card? Yep, I sure did. My colors were tartan. Check. Do I have time or a clock? I have both, so bonus for me. In random, I added a little bowl, so yes, I do. From my sketch, I realized I didn't actually have everything in here that I needed to, so I just rearranged it so that if I ever want to make this card again, I can do so. I also wrote down all the marker colors I use so that in the event I want to replicate this, I have that available for me. Sometimes I store that in the back of the stamp set as well on a piece of paper just so I know what they are, but for this instance, I wanted to keep it in my little handy dandy craft roulette creative companion. So my mission has been accomplished. I hope you enjoyed this process video and let me know in the comments if it works for you. Have a great day, everyone.